welcome to my channel, Lady Odds and Ends, also known as Photo Flair. So I'm going to be covering a very useful and amazing technique in Photoshop that I'm sure you've heard about before, but if you haven't, even better. It's called frequency separation, and very quickly we can go from, this image where you can see evidence of age, like little divots there and like marks here and her neck, and you can take that and go to something like this and basically knock off the years very, very quickly. So a quick fundamental of how frequency separation works. So you've got two layers, or rather you have your image, okay, and what frequency separation does is it separates out your color from your detail in the layer. I'm going to cover basically how to do it with Gaussian blurs and like the different effects we can create with it. So let me get straight into it. So the first thing you've noticed is I've kind of already done it here. So I'm just going to hide that. Now what I've actually done is I've created an action to frequency separate. The only reason I do that is because I do quite a lot of editing, and it makes my workflow go a lot faster if I don't have to do this process every single time I need to do a photo. Instead, I just click my little action, click play, and off it goes. For the purposes of teaching you though, I don't think it's very wise to do that. So what I like to do is press Ctrl-Shift-Alt-N, Ctrl-Shift-Alt-E to duplicate the layer. Then I press Ctrl-J to duplicate the layer again. Okay, so we're going to hide that first duplicated layer and go to the second duplicated layer. I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur. Now, when you're blurring, the most important thing to remember is not to over or under blur. You want to blur it enough so that the detail disappears. So, if you look at that skin piece of texture right there, if I blur it, I can still see the texture, and the texture's gone. Okay, you don't want to go further than that, but you don't want to go so little that, you can still see everything. Now, use this, do this to taste, so to speak. In other words, if you're working with an image and you're actually using this technique to edit something like clothing, you want to use it in such a way that you get the effect you want. Now, this blur affects what we see in that detail layer. So the more I blur it, the more information is captured onto the detail layer, and eventually you also start capturing colors in the detail layer as well. So for this image, 7.2 does the trick, 7.2 pixels that is. Press OK, and now we've got this blurred image. Great. Now I go to my first layer, the very top, see it's selected there, go to Image, Apply Image. The default is always generally going to be merged, okay? We don't want that. We want the default to be the layer beneath the layer we're on. So we're on layer 8 to copy. We want layer 8, okay? We're going to go invert and not multiply. We're going to choose add. Now, there's some technicalities to how this works in terms of what Photoshop is doing, but I'm not going to get into all of it because it's quite boring. Press OK. Alright, so now we've got blur layer and we've got this layer. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to change the blending mode from normal down to linear light. Now if I hold Control, select both layers and press Control G to group them, I can then just do a before and after so that you can see, look, it's identical, like nothing has changed. One of the issues that I've often seen come up with editing is, okay, great, I've done this, but now if you look at some of the information we have to deal with here, there's a lot of place for error. I could really mess up on her neck and then, oh no, what have I done? It's destructive editing. I'm going to go Control J. I know I'm making yet another duplicate on the blur layer. Right click on the layer and click Create Clipping Mask. So all this does is say I'm only going to affect the layer that I'm clipped to. That's all we want. As far as the detail layer is concerned, you can do the same thing. I generally don't, just because, I don't know, I don't always like to, but you can do exactly the same thing. Go Control J and create clipping mask. Okay, the reason I don't is what you're seeing right here, where it like duplicates the effect. We have got this layer now. Now you can use a variety of tools. I'm going to show you what I use and what makes my life really easy and really quick. I use the patch tool. So press J for the patch tool, or if it's not working for whatever reason, it's over here. You'll see it's with the spot healing brush tool, content aware move tool, and the red eye tool. So it's one of those. Okay, so you press the patch tool, and what you do is you start looking at the areas that you're trying to kind of fix up. First area I see is that area between her eyes. It's a bit of a frown line, I guess. Select it, select where I want to fix it, and fix it. Even though you can kind of sit here and go, oh, I don't like that patch, and I don't like that patch, and you could really go wild. You need to keep in mind the form of a face. Every single face is created with shapes and patterns, and it has a form. These forms are created by light and dark. If you mess too much with the light and dark, you can actually deform somebody's face without ever intending to. So if, for example, I took that area and patched it over there, you see what I've done there? I've taken what was a solid or slightly more solid transition and made it softer. So I've changed the form of her shapes, of her face, not shape. So if I so there we go. So I've completely changed that form. Okay, so what we want to do when we're editing is we want to keep in mind the shadows that already exist in a person's face. Sorry, I'm just pressing Control Alt Z multiple times to undo what I've been doing. With the image, I'm not looking at it in too much detail, so I'm not going to zoom in like this and circle every tiny freckle I see. I'm going to look at it holistically, still pretty close but not too close, so that I can see the effect that I'm creating, without destroying what her image looks like. So like there, I saw a little bit of what looked like a pimple. Here it looks a bit uneven, so I'm just going to sample from another area in a similar light. With red marks like these on her chin, these are generally can be caused by pimples. They can also be caused by what do you call it? Freckles and that kind of thing. Also, some people do just generally have redder skin. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so all I'm doing is softening that effect. But now I don't want to go overboard. So if I feel like I'm going overboard, I do a bit of a before and after check to make sure that I'm keeping it still close enough. Now, the reason I'm choosing to sample from here is I'm choosing the tone that I'm trying to go for. Okay. So I still want to keep that shape in her face. That is a part of her face, so you don't want to change that. Or at least don't want to change it too much. Okay. And already, we haven't done all that much. It didn't take all that long, but we've already done some serious things. Now this area is a tricky one because there's very little to no information there. It is a dark area. So we have to deal with it slowly and carefully and in parts. See, if I try and sample over there, get a decent enough idea, but it's, I don't know, it could be better, okay? But you can see that there's no texture there. That's because of this texture layer. There is just genuinely no texture. You can do this in a couple of ways. You could clone stamp some texture in there. I'm just going to keep using the patch tool. And you can see how quickly I've removed that like very dark area and kept it looking natural. You don't want it to look like it should be, like there should be something there. I'm going to keep using the patch tool, and when I move on to the next tool, I will show you what I do next. Fantastic. So I'm all done with the main areas that I can see being kind of obvious, you know, as you can see here. She has quite a beautiful face, so there really aren't many areas. She is a bit of an older lady, and so obviously, you know, there'll be some wrinkles and that kind of thing, but honestly, stunning face. So, you know, I'll address some of the things that I know she may feel self-conscious about, such as wrinkles under your eyes and that kind of thing. Now, I'm a woman, you know, anyone who's spent 5 minutes in a room with a woman will know we're all self-conscious. So let's deal with some of those self-conscious elements, okay? Now, when you're getting rid of wrinkles, remember that, again, there is light and there is dark. So just because it seems like it may only be part of the detail layer, it's not. See, if I hide the detail layer, you can actually see all the dark marks that those wrinkles leave. So if I go back onto the color layer, that duplicate we made, and I just start patching that, already those wrinkles look a million times better. Again, be careful to where you're patching from and where you're sampling from. You could use the healing brush tool for this if you wanted to. I like the control of the patch tool and the fact that it gives me the ability to see exactly what I'm sampling. You know, whereas with the healing brush tool, let's use the spot. It doesn't really give me too much control. You know, just kind of, you paint it on and you hope for the best. With the spot healing brush tool, yeah, you get a bit more control, but it still doesn't look that great. Okay, and back onto the patch tool. So I really do enjoy the patch tool. It does a good job of matching up sort of tones and colors and making them work together. I'm just going to finish dealing with the color layer of the wrinkles, and then I'll show you what I do with the details. Okay, I've finished it to the point where I'm happy with it. If you look carefully at the before and after, you can see the before it's quite dark. Now, again, you know, lack of sleep, coffee, all these things will add to people getting these kind of marks on their faces. Like, yes, you can get amazing makeup artists who can cover that up, but even that then, you know, lights do pick these things up. So I've also just softened it just with color. I have not touched the detail layer at all. In fact, I could even just go in there and just make that a bit softer as well. So it just gives it a nice smoother transition, okay? Now, if I go to the detail layer, I can see, okay, well, look, already they look so much better. I'll take off some of the main wrinkles, but I won't remove all of them. People are the way they are, and wrinkles are a part of who you are. Smile wrinkles are amazing. Yes, get rid of the frowns. You know, nobody wants to look like they're frowning, but a gorgeous smile wrinkle is beautiful, you know, keep it in. So I'm just going to go in and just select out the wrinkles I don't want. I might go a little bit overboard just for the sake of the tutorial, just to kind of show you that we can remove it all, you know. You don't really have to, you're not constricted or restricted by anything, really. I'm just going to quickly undo. Okay, so the only reason I did that undoing was just to make sure that I'm not losing too much information or anything like that. Now remember, when you're sampling, you don't want to sample from, you know, here. So if I grabbed a spot there and then sampled from there, that will look awful. You don't want to do that, okay? I'm going to do the same over here. Just keeping in mind where you're sampling from. try not to move too far away from the sample area, just because I don't want to lose too much detail like there. So if you look here, it's quite harsh and you can see there's almost too much detail. So I'm intentionally getting rid of some of it, you know, just to make it a smoother, sort of softer transition. You don't have to do that. It's not like a prerequisite or anything, but you can see the difference already. And all we've done is mess around with the lights and the darks and the texture versus the color areas and that kind of thing. Now you can really use this to your advantage. So for example, you can see that under her eyes it's looking quite blue almost. So if I go Control-Alt-Shift-N to create a new layer, and yet again make it a clipping mask, okay, select my brush tool. I'm going to drop the flow down really, really low, drop my hardness down, let's maybe drop down a bit more, sample some of her skin color and just lightly paint it on there. Not too not too hard. I just resampled to keep the colors continuous. Okay, so I really didn't do much, but just that one layer again makes it softer, makes it look like, you know, she doesn't have bags under her eyes and that kind of thing. It's all obviously not true, I mean, clearly, but that's not the point. The point is making your client look and feel amazing. So we can see just what a difference that made. Now, like I said to you, I'm going a bit overboard. Here, you can see this is the original I did. I left a lot of those dark patches in because, again, it's closer to who she is. Here, we're just going over a technique, okay? So, remember what I was saying about the light and the dark creating forms? And you can basically manipulate and change those forms based on what you want to do. Now, usually this is a bad idea, but in cases like this, specifically if you look around here, we don't want that. Okay, we've got this sort of, you know, neck thingy going on that's just, it doesn't look very appealing. Your client probably will want that removed, you know. Your client won't enjoy, you know, those kind of things being visible in a photo like this. So hide it for them, you know. I'm going to go back into my top color layer and I'm going to start off with the patch tool to get it as close as I can. So I'm just doing sort of a rough, sort of, let's kind of get an idea of what this color is going to be, okay. And I'm looking at it and I don't like what's happening, you know, I'm creating more work for myself than anything else. So let's undo all of that. Let's show you what I do. Okay, so we've got this layer for her eyes. Why not use it for that as well? Same idea. Because you're working on a completely separate layer than your detail, you can color in as much as you want, but the detail is going to stay there. So if I, for example, just to demonstrate this fact, wanted to turn her lips blue, no problem. Color, 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 color. That detail's still there. I mean, this is obviously a horrible blue, and I'm not taking into account luminosity or anything. So let's say we do take into account luminosity, so we want to... Oh, no. Hold on. Let's find the right... Yeah, that works. Color dodge or color. So you can see color just changes the color, literally. We've made her lips blue, but the detail is still there, and all I've done was color that blue in. And because we've changed the layer mode, the color of her lips is affected, but not the tone, or the tonal range, should we say. That's actually quite cool. But yes, it just demonstrates the point. So I'm going to change it back to normal. You can see the difference there. Let's go to my eraser tool. You can press E for the eraser tool. And I'm just going to erase all of that, because we don't want to turn her lips blue in this case. But I might do something with her flower. Okay. So I've grabbed my brush tool again, and as with the previous example of her under her eyes, I'm going to sample sort of a rough mid-tone range. You don't want to go too dark or too light, you kind of want to get it somewhere in the middle. If you're worried about losing tone, grab your clone stamp tool, press S for the clone stamp tool, or you can find it over there. Sample a layer or an area and plonk it down. You really don't have to be too delicate, because remember, this is all on a new layer. So whatever we do, we can erase, we can change it. We really can do as much or as little as we want. And that's the beauty of this type of editing. It's completely non-destructive and keeps your picture intact for the most part. So I'm just looking here and I can see it's just a couple more places that could use with a bit of love. And there we go. I mean, obviously I spent a lot more time on it because I didn't want to lose like all smoothness and stuff like that. But now here's the beauty. Because we've done it on a new layer, let's say I want to show some of that information back up. All I've done is created a layer mask, press that little icon there, and click black for your foreground color, and just color it in. And all you're doing is hiding what you've colored in. It's that simple. Okay, so in a very short amount of time, well, I say that it's been about 10-15 minutes technically of me editing, but I've gone from that to that. I've still kept all her details, I've kept all the skin texture, haven't really changed anything in her face, you know, vastly, I mean barring that little divot. I've reduced the bags under her eyes, but kept the form. You see, it's still darker than the area underneath it. You don't want to make it, you know, pure white. The only sort of, I mean, geez, I think, remember there is still an eye socket under there, and that eye socket is going to mean that less light is going to get to those areas. So as you can see, short amounts of time, and that's what we can do with frequency separation. And again, because this is all non-destructive, the only thing that was somewhat destructive was the detail layer. Not a big deal. But if you look here, I can hide those, and I've still got the original image. You know, if I don't like something, I can layer mask it out. If I've done something too much, especially on the color layers, because those are really the biggest areas, all I have to do is go in, color it in, or layer mask it out, or erase it, and it's done. Anyway, I hope you have learned something cool about frequency separation. I'm going to cover more that you can do with it, because frequency separation is one of those tools that you really can do a hell of a lot with. I did not realize the full extent of what can be done with it until, you know, sort of a couple of months ago, and I've been blown away. If you like this video, please do subscribe, like it. If you feel that I could do something better, please do let me know. Send me a comment in the box below, pop me an email. If I am doing something you absolutely love, let me know so I keep doing it. I hope you have a fantastic day, and cheers.